Hi, this is Andy from the technical support team here at NetSupport, and today we're going to be looking at a walkthrough of NetSupport Manager. NetSupport Manager is our remote control solution that can be utilized to access devices that are located around your LAN or WAN environment, or that may be completely remote to you, and you may be utilizing the NetSupport Manager gateway component to connect to those. So we're going to be taking a look at all the different features and functionality available within NetSupport Manager in this video. And we'll be looking at how we can locate those machines using the NetSupport Manager control. We'll also be looking at how we can access the different features within the interface and look at some of the security aspects of NetSupport Manager as well. So to begin with, just to explain, there are three main components of NetSupport Manager. You have the NetSupport Manager control component, which is what would be installed on the machines that need to remote onto your devices. And then you have the NetSupport Manager client component, which would be installed on the devices that need to be accessed remotely. And then optional to that is the NetSupport Manager connectivity server. Now, the NetSupport Manager connectivity server is an optional component. It's not required if you're connecting just across the LAN or WAN environment for your machines, but it would be utilized if, for example, you have machines that were off-site that you needed to access. Maybe you've got staff members working from home and you need to provide remote support to those, or people that are roaming, then you can utilize the NetSupport Manager gateway to allow access to those. Now, it's also worthwhile mentioning that with NetSupport Manager, there's a variety of different ways that you can deploy out the software. We do include with NetSupport Manager a deploy utility. So there is a built-in deploy utility included. So you'll find when you install the NetSupport Manager control, there is a deploy utility available. However, we tend to find that the preferred option for deploying NetSupport Manager to customers' networks is using their preferred method of distributing software, and that might be SCCM, it might be Intune, it might be Active Directory group policy software deployments, and NetSupport Manager can be packaged up and can be created with a silent install as well, and you'll find documentation on our website explaining the different ways that you can deploy out NetSupport Manager. So what we're going to take a look at first of all is the NetSupport Manager control component. So to access this on the desktop, I've got the NetSupport Manager control just here. And if I double click the NetSupport Manager control, that will take me into the NetSupport Manager control interface. Now we can see this has taken me through to the All Computers tab at the moment, and this is going to display a list of any machines that I've previously connected to, where I can see I've got the NetSupport Manager client that I've previously connected to here, which is my demo machine 2. Now, if there are more machines on the network or a different machine that I need to connect to, so if I just wanted to browse the local network to locate any other client devices, I can go to the browse option from the main toolbar and just click on browse, and that's now going to browse the network and return any other devices that it's found on the network that are running the NetSupport Manager client. Once I've located those machines, we can see it's changed me to the browse view here to show me the results, and I can see my 3 devices. And if there are any that I needed to now connect to, I could then highlight these devices and use the connect option from the main toolbar to start an active connection to that device. So you've got the ability then to connect or disconnect from any of those client devices. Now, if I was looking to connect to maybe machines that are remote to me across the NetSupport Manager gateway component, then I would go to the Internet Gateway view down the left-hand side again, and we can see here you may have pre-populated your gateway connections. You may have one, or there may be multiple connections, depending on how many gateway servers you're running or how many different keys you may have on your gateway server and how you're separating those clients. In the example I've got here, though, I've just got a single NetSupport Manager gateway connection currently set up, and I can highlight my NetSupport Manager gateway, and I can double click, and that will then return all of the clients that are currently connected to my NetSupport Manager gateway. So that's located machines that may be completely off-site or remote to me, but are connected to that gateway server at that time. I could then again, I could highlight that NetSupport Manager client from the list, and I can use the connect option. Now, rather than connecting to that machine using TCP like we did for the LAN connection, in the background that's then using a HTTP connection to that device, and that can also be secured to use HTTPS as well. So that's how you can browse and locate machines on the gateway, and how you can also browse and locate machines across your LAN WAN environment. Now, another example for locating your client devices, maybe you're on the phone with a member of your team and you need to remotely access their machine to support them, and they may have provided you with either their IP address or their machine name, in which case you can go to the Quick Connect feature. So rather than having to browse, you go here and type in the IP address maybe of the device you want to connect to, and then you can click Quick Connect, and essentially that's now established a direct connection to that machine. So there are a number of different ways that you can use to actually access and connect to the devices. Now, another method we can use is called the pin connect functionality. So again, maybe the user doesn't know what their machine name is, or doesn't have a record of what their IP address of it is at the moment, in which case you could use the pin connect functionality. So again, this is an optional component that's available within the NetSupport Manager program, and is a component that can be added to the connectivity server. But if it has been added, what you can now do is you've now got the option to either enter a pin that's maybe been supplied to you by the person you're looking to support. Alternatively, you can generate a pin on the control side and provide that to the person you're supporting, and they can then enter that on their NetSupport Manager client. That will then again establish a direct connection between the control machine and the client machine. So it's just another way that you can utilize and connect to your devices. And again, that may depend on how the devices are being used, whether they're attended devices where there's maybe a member of staff at them, or whether they're unattended devices and there's nobody present on the machine. So there's various ways that you can connect and locate the machines using the NetSupport Manager control. Now, if you've also got multiple machines in your control that you need to manage, then we do also have a search facility available. So if you are managing, a large number of clients in your control, then you do have the search facility available just on the toolbar by switching to the View tab, and you can then perform a search for those devices, where you can search based on logged on user, search based on the name, or search based on the address of the machine. So it's worthwhile just being aware of that functionality there. Now, what we're going to take a look at now is actively connecting to those machines. So again, I'm just going to go to my browse option. I'm just going to perform a simple browse of my devices. So I've found my 3 devices here, and I'm now just going to highlight all of those and use the connect option. So we can now see that's established a remote connection to each of those machines, and they've now changed to a green color to signify that we are now accessing those devices. Now, I can switch back from the browse to all computers, and I can now see my client devices here. Now we can see these ones that don't have the cloud component against the icon. That means that relates to a local TCP connection to that device, rather than using a gateway connection to that device. Again, you might have lots of client machines in your control. And so to organize these, we have the ability to group them. Now, to do that, we have the option to actually create your own groups. So I've created a office location group, and then I've created different countries where maybe my different clients are connected to. And you can add your clients to these. So you can see in the UK, I've just added one client machine there. I've not added any other clients to my other groups. But I can do by right-clicking a group, and I can go to the properties. And within the properties, it's the members option where I can add different devices to my groups. So if you do want to organize your client devices into set groups, then you do have the option to create groups. Now, to generate those groups, at the top bar here, you'll see there is an option to create a new group, and then you can create a number of different subgroups as well to allow you to maybe create that structure that you require to organize your client devices. So you can just have all your client devices all in the single all computers view. Alternatively, you may choose instead to be using the different group view to organize those. So it's completely up to you how you wish to do that. Now, within this, we've also then got the ability to auto group. So auto groups allows you to group your devices based on the Windows platform. So we can see the majority of my machines have dropped into the Windows 11 Windows platform group there. And we can see the other client types that we also support. So we also have a client for Mac OS, a client for Chrome OS, and a client for Android. So again, your clients will drop into those groups automatically based on the platform that they return to the control. As well as being able to auto group based on the platform, you can also auto group your devices based on the client version. So if you've got multiple client versions out there for NetSupport Manager, it will automatically group those based on the version information, and also by the enclosure type. So we can see my devices have all returned as being virtual, so they're shown in the virtual enclosure type group there. So again, just allows you to organize and access the devices based on specific criteria. And the last one we have for auto groups is a client location. So we will return geolocation information from the client to place its location, and that will then be shown within the control here. So we can see for my clients, I've got my client has returned as being in London for this one in particular. So that's something that you can also allow you to display the clients using different methods to organize them. Okay, so now we can see how we can organize the clients using our groups and how we can connect to our clients. The next thing to take a look at is what functionality is available when we're working with our clients. So the main feature that is available in NetSupport Manager is the ability to view a client machine. So to view a client machine, you can select a client, and you'll find that there is the View Client option from the main toolbar. And you can either select the View Client button to open up a view window. Alternatively, you can double click on a client to open a view window as well. When you double click the client to open the view window, that's now established a real-time remote control session to that client machine. And by default, we can see it's placed us in the share mode. So there's actually 3 different modes when you're remote controlling the machine. You can switch between share, watch, or control. You can choose the default within the control configuration. So if you do need to change that, it is possible. Some people prefer it to open up directly into watch mode or in control mode first of all. So it is possible to set a default within the settings. Now, what share mode means is when I'm remote controlling the machine, myself and the person at the remote machine will be able to access their local keyboard and mouse. So I've got access to provide remote support to them, but they can also be moving things around as well. If I was to place it into watch mode, essentially I can no longer perform any remote actions on their device. So I would just be monitoring them at that point. If I was to choose control mode, then essentially I've got access to their keyboard and mouse, but it's now locked out local access for the person that is at that device. So you can choose between the different modes. Now, depending on the speed of the connection that you're using for the remote machine, it may be that you need to lower the amount of bandwidth that's being used between the client and the control to maybe help improve the performance of the remote control session. So we do have the option to allow you to lower the color depth or to increase that to basically provide the best experience when you are remote controlling the device. So for example, you're maybe hotspotted on a control machine and it maybe is a slower connection. You may find that lowering the color depth will provide a better performance when you're remote controlling the machine. Now, we've also got the ability to send a Control-Alt-Delete. So if I need to maybe send a Control-Alt-Delete to the remote machine to take you to that Windows security screen, then you can use the Send Control-Alt-Delete option there. Alternatively, you can also press the Control-Alt-Escape key on your control, and that will also perform the send action. Now, if you do need to blank the remote user screen once you maybe perform some administrative tasks that maybe you don't want to be visible to the user at the remote machine, then you do also have the blank option available, which will blank their screen but continue to allow you to monitor their device. So you do have the option to toggle that on and off as required. And maybe an error's popped up on the machine, or maybe there's something that you need to capture from their device. So you do have the screenshot option available, which you can click. You can see that's now shown a screenshot there, and I can now access that screenshot from the list. And you can then maybe raise that on a support case if maybe it does relate to an error message that you need to investigate further as part of your support session with the end user. You can also, if you need to, you can log out the remote user. You can reboot their machine. You could maybe send them a message. Maybe you need them to close an application. So you could say, please close the application. So you could type that, type out your message. You could then say how long you want that to appear on screen for, click send, and that will then appear on their screen. So if you do need to maybe send messages out for the remote control session, then you can do so using the message feature there. Now, other functionality you have available is you've got the scale to fit option available as well. So what this essentially means is if you maybe need to resize the view window, you'll see it will follow the size of the window, allow you to see the complete desktop still. If you were to disable the scale to fit option, then essentially you would get scroll bars instead. So you wouldn't see the complete desktop, you instead would see just the scroll bars instead. And you can do that with either keeping the aspect ratio, or you can also disable the aspect ratio so you can kind of resize it as you require there. So it depends whether you want to keep the aspect ratio. I tend to find keeping the scale to fit on and keeping that on with the aspect ratio provides the best experience, but you can change that as required. You've also got the full screen option. So if you do want to remove the toolbar and go to a full screen mode, then you can use the full screen option. Quite handy if you are maybe remotely working from home but connecting to a machine in the office, so you want it to be more a seamless remote control session, then you can use the full screen option for that. You've then also got those two methods of remote control available in NetSupport Manager, just to ensure you can always remote onto a device. So you've got the ability, by default, it will use desktop duplication, but if you need to, you can toggle to an alternative method to capture the remote screen, which is using the screen scrape functionality available there. Okay, now if you do need to copy any clipboard contents to or from the remote machine, Auto Clipboard is on by default, which allows you to copy any text or items from the remote machine to your machine. So for example, if I was to type here, so if I just put some example text in, I could then copy that text. And if I was to go to my machine, I could then paste that text on my machine. That's with the Auto Clipboard functionality available. And you can also you can disable the Auto Clipboard if you prefer, and you can send and receive the clipboard contents manually. So it's possible to change that as required. It's also possible using the quick launch functionality here to launch certain applications on the remote device as well. Now, to do this, you can either have a number of preset applications that you've populated in the quick launch option that you can select and then use the quick launch option once you've chosen it. Alternatively, you can click on the option to launch application, and then you can either type in the application details. For example, I could just put calc in there, click execute, and that will then execute that chosen application on the remote machine. So it's also possible to have a preset list of applications or to choose and enter those as you go. Now, with this, we also have the Tools tab available. So on the Tools tab, we've got access to a few other features that can be useful whilst remote controlling the machine. One of them being the Remote Task Manager view. So if you maybe want to be monitoring what's running on the remote machine whilst you're remote controlling them, then you can have the Task Manager window open, and that's maybe handy for the process view where you might be monitoring certain processes that are running. You can also highlight, so if there's any processes that are changing, you want those to be highlighted. You could be keeping an eye on things. So if maybe you're supporting something and they're maybe advising that something's running a bit slow, that allows you to hopefully pinpoint what might be going wrong there. You've also got the ability to highlight any of these, and you can then use the terminate process option from the main toolbar. And similar for the application view, you've got the go to process. You've also got the print and export option available on each of those as well. So if you do need to export any information to assist with maybe any investigations from the remote control session, then you can do so. With the services option, again, you've got the ability to see a list of all the running services on the remote machine. Again, there's the print and export option available, as well as the start, stop, pause, and restart options available there as well. So if you maybe need to restart a service without having to interfere with the end user on the machine, then you can use the restart option available there. And that's quite handy because it means, it may be that the person logged onto the machine maybe doesn't have full admin rights, so maybe you can't restart a service as that user. So you could do so using the Task Manager option without having to log them off, log on as an admin, restart the service, and then perform the action. So that could be useful for those purposes. So within the view window, we've also got access to the file transfer functionality, and this allows you to copy files to and from the remote machine. So you can click on the file transfer window. You'll see your directory structure at the top for your local machine, and then for the remote machine you're connected to, you'll see their directory structure at the bottom part of the file transfer window. And it's simply a case of drag and drop for any of the files to and from the machine. So you could highlight a particular file or folder and drag and drop it to the remote machine. Within this, you do have the ability to synchronize between two folders. You can also delete folders. You can also, if needed to, you can delete files. And there's also the open with option to open the particular files up in their preferred application as well. So you do have the ability to open files and edit files using that in their preferred application as well, using this functionality. And you can also delete files on maybe your local machine or on the remote machine using the file transfer window there. Now, if maybe the person that you're remotely supporting, maybe there's no access to a phone line where they are, and you need to be able to have a chat with them. So we do have a text-based chat option available at the control machine. So you'll see that opens a chat window on the remote machine and opens a chat window on the control machine, and you can then start typing your information here. You can also, if you're connected to more than one client, you can invite other members to also join the chat session. From the main drop-down menu for chat, you'll also find the ability to save that chat session at the end of the session as well. So if you do need to keep a record of that chat session, you do have the option to do so there. But again, really handy if you do need to chat with that person, if maybe there's no phone signal or anything like that to the person that you're providing remote support to. With this, you've also then got the Annotate option available, which can be useful if you're trying to navigate the person to different areas maybe. So you could maybe highlight and say this is where you'll find the file that's been deleted. So you can use the tools available and the different paint options to allow you to annotate on their screen, which can be handy when providing remote support. And you'll find the kind of standard paint options available with that. You can then also save that screen at the end as well. So if you do need to keep a record of any annotations during maybe the remote session, then you can save that using the option there. And then when finished, you can just click the exit option and all the annotations from the screen will then be removed. If we then go to the last tab on the view window, we've got the audio feature available. So with the audio feature, essentially, again, if maybe there's no phone signal, phone access like that, but if maybe the person you're remotely connected to has a headset connected to their device and you've got a headset connected to your device, then essentially you could have a two-way conversation over the NetSupport Manager remote connection there. So it does support audio support to the remote client device. You've also then got the talk and listen option available as well. So you can choose which direction of audio you want to allow. By default, that is off, so the audio will be disabled by default, so that won't be captured there. Now, down at the bottom, there's a couple of other options just to be aware of. One of them is the international keyboard. So again, if you are supporting devices that are maybe using different keyboard layouts to the one that you're connecting from, you can choose between different keyboard layouts to utilize. And you can also capture the print jobs from the remote machines as well. So, for example, there's a number of documents on the remote machine that I need to print out on my local printer at my control machine, then I could enable the print capture feature. And then when I choose the print option, that will essentially then print that and capture that to my remote machine. It will capture it to a PDF file by default, and then provide the print option to allow that to be printed on my local control workstation. So again, can be a handy component to utilize there when remote controlling the remote machine. So that's the view window. Just before we come out of the view window, there is access to a few other quick actions available as well. So from the main toolbar, you'll see where we've got the client name. You can click the down arrow, and this will allow you access to some of the other features we're going to take a look at in a moment, and also some of the information relating to the remote machine as well. So again, you can see who's logged on. You can see the type of connection we're utilizing. So we've got an AES encrypted connection at the moment, just to ensure that all our data is secure between the control and the client. And we can see the operating system information and the name information there too. So again, can be handy if you're providing things maybe for support purposes. Maybe you're raising a case and you need to maybe copy out what the IP details are and the name information. So you've got the handy copy option available there. So quite handy, you can copy any information from that to then maybe log for your support case. If we close down the view window, that now takes us back to the main NetSupport Manager control interface, and we'll have a look at some of the other functionality that we can access that doesn't necessarily require the view window to be open. So again, if I've got a client machine and I just want to transfer some files between myself and the remote machine, I don't have to open a view window to that machine. I can just jump straight into the file transfer window to allow me to copy those files between the client and control again. So that doesn't require the view window to be open for that. Now again, quite handy if I'm remote supporting a user and I do need to maybe make a registry change on their device, then you do have the option to go into the registry and actually perform those changes on their remote machine. So if you've got an active remote connection to that device, you do have access to the registry editor to allow you to make adjustments to their machine. So you can go in there, and again, that can be done without having to interfere with the user that's logged on to that particular device. Again, we can access the task manager view. So if we do need to see maybe what applications are running, what processes are running, or what services are running, again, just to maybe be monitoring what's happening on a machine, then you can do so using the Task Manager feature there. And if we want to see the inventory information for the machine, we can open up the inventory. This is split into two sections where we can see the hardware inventory and the software inventory. So on the hardware inventory, we'll see a snapshot of the information that's been returned. So some useful information there, such as the processor information, network card information, video adapters, the drive space, and any printers that have been installed. So really useful to see exactly maybe if you're, again, providing remote support, you need to maybe check the resources of the machine, what's the spec of the machine that you're working with, then you can utilize that component to take a look at that information in detail. Again, you can then print or export that. Now, this doesn't update automatically, so it does require a refresh. So you can see the last time this was used was the 28th of March. So I can click on the refresh option, and that will then scan the machine and update any details from that device. If there's been any hardware changes, they will now be reported in there. You can then also go to the software view, which will show you a list of the software that's installed on the device. So you can scan through that list to maybe see, is it missing a particular update of a particular application? And again, you can export and print that information out. And that again is a snapshot. So again, you can use the refresh option if you ever need to refresh the details. Maybe you've just installed something, want to check that it's shown as being installed, so you could then use the refresh to capture that. And then there's also the hotfixes view. So this is just going to show you if there's any installed hotfixes that it has detected on the machine. So you can go to the hotfixes view to see that information there. Now, as well as the inventory view, we've also got the remote command prompt. So if there's maybe remote commands that we need to run on the machine, or maybe you just want to get some more information, maybe you want to find out what DNS servers is the machine using. So you could run your command at the bottom, and that will run that against the remote machine. So we can now see the full IP information for that device has been returned in that view, and you could, again, you could use that for maybe other commands that you want to run against the remote machines. Again, really handy resource to be able to use. So there's also, as well as the remote command prompt, there's also the remote PowerShell command option, which allows you to run PowerShell commands against the remote machines. So for example, I could click on my machine. I can then go to the PowerShell option. Now, you do have the option of specifying a username and password to use to execute the PowerShell commands on the machine. I'm just going to connect it in as normal. And for example, if I wanted to maybe return a list of the open or listening ports on the machine, I could type in the command for this. And that will now return the list of listening ports for my remote machine there. So again, really handy to allow you to maybe run those PowerShell commands against the remote machine without requiring that remote control session to the end user's machine as well. And you've got the paste options available for that as well. So really handy to have the remote PowerShell option there. So they're the kind of main options we have available. It is also possible to access a few other features. So when you right click a machine, again, you've got access here to execute at the client, which allows you to execute applications. Again, you can do that outside of the view window. There's also a couple of other places you can do that. And on the right click, you've also got access to the chat facility, the ability to send a message where you may highlight maybe more than one machine that you want to send a message to. And you've got access to the audio option available as well. And then down at the bottom, you've also got the ability to log out the user and to also reboot the remote machine too. There's also the facility to power off the machine. Maybe it's the end of day, you're finished with that machine, so you can then power that machine off remotely. So it's possible to perform that. Now, if we go to the next tab along, where we've got the remote option. Again, we can see some of the features along the top that we can access, including that launch application one, where we can have that save list of applications. So you can see there's my notepad one there. And you can do a few things such as basically only allow it to run on machines if they're logged in. So again, I could highlight different machines from the list and launch that application across multiple machines. So maybe I want Notepad to pop up on all those machines, or maybe there's another command that I want to utilize. Now, the other things we have available as well is there is the power on option. So if your machines support Wake on LAN, and they are on your local network, then you can use the power on facility to send a Wake on LAN packet out to those machines to turn those on remotely as well. So as well as being able to power off machines, you do have the option to power them on too. Now, we do also have the ability to use the scan functionality. So this has been in the product for a number of years now. So you can essentially define how you want the scan to appear, and it operates a bit like a kind of almost like a CCTV system, where essentially you're viewing one screen, then it'll switch to the next screen and then the next screen. And you can have that in a grid fashion, or you can have it shown one at a time. So for example, I've got my 3 machines here that I'm connected to. I can then click on the start option, and you'll see it's showing me the first machine, and then after a period of time, it's going to skip to the next machine and the next machine, and then the next machine, and it will keep rotating around those devices. So it's just a separate option to use instead of the thumbnail view. Now, if something does catch your attention on a machine, you can take off the auto advance, and essentially it will just stop on that machine and pause there whilst you maybe review that machine in detail. Maybe you want to capture a screenshot of that particular device. So it's just an alternative that you can use. Some people prefer to use the thumbnail view to see all of the screens, and some people prefer to use the scan option and have those in a grid fashion as well, depending on how many machines you want to include in the scan. And then again, we've got the chat option available to allow me to start that chat session. Now, when I do chat outside of the view window, it will allow me to enter a topic if I want to. I can allow members to decline to join the chat, or I can say members can't leave the chat, and I can make that chat window always visible. And I can click OK and just start the chat session there, and that will then pop up, as you can see, on the remote machine. So you could have a chat session maybe with multiple colleagues using the chat facility. And again, maybe for the message feature, maybe I need to just advise my team that we need to perform some maintenance tonight. So I could use the message feature. Maybe it's going to be please ensure you shut down your machine this evening. Maybe you want to ensure that all machines are shut down because there's maybe going to be some work in the building. So you could have that appear, and you could say whether that's going to be information, question, warning, or a stop. So you could maybe just put that in as a warning. You could put a time in there as well that you want that to appear and disappear. So I could maybe set that to 30 seconds, click on send, and that will then pop up on each of those machines. So you can see there's the message popped up, just asking them all to ensure they shut down their machine this evening. So not something you have to, again, just use within a single remote control session to a machine. You can do that to multiple machines. And again, you've got the audio option to allow you to communicate with the devices as well. Now, if we go to the next tab along, again, we've got some additional options here that are available. Now, what we've seen so far is how I can view a machine. It's also possible in NetSupport Manager to present your screen to the remote devices. We actually have a couple of different ways that we can do this. We've got the ability to present your desktop So if I was to, for example, click the Show Desktop option, you can see I can choose which clients I want to present my desktop to. And I can say, do I want to create maybe a video recording at the client? So they've got a recording at the end of the session that they can look back on. I can include hotkeys with this as well. So if I'm maybe using any hotkey combinations during the presentation, they can then see what they are. So they'll pop up in a little speech bubble on their machine. And I can also say, when I present my screen, do I want to present it full screen, in which case it will lock their keyboard and mouse, and they won't be able to perform any other actions whilst I'm presenting. Or I can present to a window so they could follow along, or I can present it to a maximize window. So any of the window options will still give them access to their local keyboard and mouse. But if you use the full screen option, that will lock down their machines during the presentation. So that allows you to present your screen to those remote devices. Now, it could be that you don't want to present your entire desktop. Maybe you just want to present a certain application. So again, you can use the Show Application option, which when selected, you could target a specific application and just present that to the remote machines rather than presenting the entire desktop to them. So if maybe you've got email alerts or things appearing on your machine that you don't want to appear during the presentation, then you can use the Show Application option instead. Now, the other option we have is Show Replay. So within NetSupport Manager, it is also possible to record your screen to create a video recording. So you could, prior to the presentation, you could actually use the record option to create a video recording. And then once you've created that video recording, you could go to the Show Replay feature, select that video recording, and actually play that back as your presentation to the remote machines. You can play those video recordings back locally as well. Now, by default, they're stored in our own proprietary format, which is a RPF file. There is a converter there allowing you to convert that to other formats, but it is nice to be aware that there is that record feature available to allow you to maybe create those mini how do I videos, maybe how do I access the company portal for the first time, how do I access this resource on the network, or if you want to maybe use that for presentations, that again you could record your screen. You can include audio within that recording as well, and then you can use the Show Replay option to just play that back to the devices. So really handy to have that recording facility available in NetSupport Manager. Now, if you do need to send a message out to all machines, maybe there's a alert that's just popped up, you need everybody to be aware, then there is also that broadcast message feature available to allow you to send that to everyone. Alternatively, for the devices that you're connected to, there's also the announce feature. So if they've all got headsets and you've got your headset, you can perform an announcement to all those devices as well. So everybody will hear what you're announcing to those to them using the announce feature. So two features that are available to allow you to broadcast both audio and broadcast messages to your remote machines. Now, if we switch to the Tools tab, with the Tools tab this time, we can access local resources. So we can access the local file manager, the local registry editor on our machine. We've also got the file distribution option available. So we've seen how we can do one-to-one file transfer. It is also possible within NetSupport Manager to do one-to-many. So with one-to-many, we can choose file distribution. Again, we've got our directory structure of our local machine at the top. And then below, we've got the remote machines that we're currently connected to. So what you can do is you could, first of all, maybe set the destination. Where do you want to send the files to? So is there a file that you want to send to the remote machine's desktop? So you can set the destination to be the desktop folder. Then choose the lock option, which will lock those to the desktop. And you can then move around to locate maybe what you want to send to the remote machines. Maybe there's a particular file. And again, it's just drag and drop to copy that to those remote devices. And that will then transfer that file to the machines that you've selected there. So again, really nice that you can send a file to multiple machines. And then we've also got the user-defined tools. And these are just tools that you can add to the control that might be handy if you're in the control interface a lot, then you can have kind of shortcuts to different things. So I can use the shortcuts here to open the registry editor or to open control panel. So that's just a few examples of things that you can add to the control interface to allow you to open things on your local machine. Now, if we go to the View tab, this allows us to see some of those view options that we have available. So this is where we can choose how do we want the icons to appear. Do we want to utilize the detailed view rather than the thumbnail view? Maybe for the tree view down the left-hand side, maybe we prefer to have that removed, or maybe we want it in the compact mode. So you can choose the look of the NetSupport Manager control to utilize that as you would like. It is also possible to choose different columns. So if you're in the detailed view, maybe you would prefer to have different columns available. So you can see for the different tabs that we have available down the left, you can choose different columns to appear when in the detailed view for those. We've also got the option of a filter bar. So again, it may be that you're managing a large number of client devices. And so to allow you to locate those, you can use the filter bar, which allows you to filter the different columns. That can be especially handy if you're using it to browse a gateway, and if your gateway has a large number of client machines connected to it, then that filter bar can be really handy when utilizing that gateway view. So you can put your gateway view again in detailed, and you'll see that filter bar is available there to allow you to filter those client machines. So you can quickly access the ones that you need to be able to remote control there. So we're going to go back to the Home tab, and we're just going to go through some of the last parts of the NetSupport Manager product. So what we also have available within NetSupport Manager is we've got the help request option. So if you are accessing or actively connected to some machines and they've got the NetSupport Manager client running, on the client machine, they can double click on the client icon, and this allows the end user to basically perform a few actions. They do have the option to disconnect. They can start a chat session with the person that's remote controlling them, and the person at the remote machine can use the help request option. So they could maybe type in their name, and they could say, I need some help. They can click on OK, and we'll see a help request message has now come in to the control machine. So we can see it's now switched me to the help request tab, where I can see which client machine has requested help. I can see who it was requested by, and I can see the help message that they have also sent there. And then once you've maybe dealt with that, maybe you've jumped on and performed a remote session with them, at that point you can then use the clear help option to remove the help request. So it is possible to allow the end users to be able to use different options from the client. Now that is configurable, so those options that we saw that are available on the client machine can be predefined and can be removed from the client if not required. So it is possible to hide those options. Everybody has a slightly different way that they use the NetSupport Manager product, and so there's lots of different configuration options available to allow you to customize the experience. Now, what we also have available is the automation feature. So there's a lot of functionality available in NetSupport Manager when you're remotely accessing your devices. And so we also have a method of automation. And this utilizes the NetSupport Manager scripting component that can be installed with your control. Now, to provide some examples of this, you can provide or you can create scripts within NetSupport Manager using the NetSupport Manager script editor. And to just kind of explain this, I'll open the editor. So if I just open one of these scripts here, so we can see this is one of the NetSupport Manager scripts that you can create. And this is the NetSupport Manager script editor. Within the script editor, there's a number of functions that you can include within your scripts. And this might be to perform things such as to connect to a remote machine. to maybe copy a file to the remote machine, to maybe execute something on the remote machine. So there's a number of different tasks. Now, common scripts that we tend to see being utilized by our customers are scripts that may be backing up files from remote machines overnight, or to maybe execute things against the machines overnight to perform remote tasks. So you can use the scripting language to create those scripts, and then there's different ways that you can execute those scripts. You can execute those scripts within the actual scripting editor itself. Alternatively, you can add the scripts within the control and execute the scripts within the control by right-clicking and using the run option. Alternatively, there's also a scripting agent component. So within the NetSupport Manager application install, you'll find the NetSupport Manager script agent component, which allows you to add scripts and add a schedule as to when you want those scripts to run. So again, if you've got scripts that you want to run overnight, you can do so using that. There's also a command line utility called the run script utility, which allows you to execute scripts via the command line, and that could be maybe utilized with maybe the Windows task scheduler instead. So you've got a variety of different ways that you can execute those scripts to automate the tasks of NetSupport Manager. I say that you can utilize scripts that maybe turn off machines at a certain time, or that maybe execute that command on the machines at a certain time to perform a automated task, or to maybe backup files from your client machine. So really powerful to utilize those scripts to provide automation for different features. We've also then got a number of security components available with NetSupport Manager. Obviously, being a remote control tool, we have to ensure that we provide a number of different ways to allow you to secure access to your client's machines. To utilize this, we include a number of different options at the client machine. So we're just going to show you through some of the security options that are available at the client to ensure that you can secure access to these. So to do this, I'm going to access the NetSupport Manager client configurator. I'm going to go to the advanced option, and we could just take a look at some of the functionality that can be configured here. So we can see we've got a security section. Now, the first security section is where you can specify user validation. So for your NetSupport Manager client machines, you can actually lock down and secure access to certain NT or AD groups only, and you can also set it up for radius authentication as well as you can also specify a local username and password. Now, if one of these has been configured, what that essentially means is when a control attempts to connect to the client with that configuration applied, they will be prompted for a username and password, and that will be required to match the details for the credentials you specified in here before it will permit the connection to the remote machine. You can also include smart card authentication with that as well. So if you are utilizing smart cards, then you can also set up the connection to also require a smart card PIN before it will permit the connection to the client. You can also specify access privileges. So maybe that some of the functionality of NetSupport Manager you don't want to provide to your remote control users, in which case you can turn off certain features and prevent those from being utilized. And if your devices are always attended devices where there's always a staff member there, and maybe that staff member is working with sensitive data, then you can enable user acknowledgement. So with user acknowledgement enabled on the client, essentially a control won't be allowed to connect until the user on that machine allows the connection. So when a control attempts to connect, a prompt will appear on the end user's machine to ask them to either accept or reject the connection. And there are different options that are available with that you can configure on this dialog here. We've also then got, for the connection options, you can put in a security key. So on your client machines, you can set a security key to be available, and only controls with a matching security key will be permitted to connect to your clients. So it's like a behind the scenes handshake that occurs, and if it doesn't match, that control won't be permitted to connect. Then you can see you can also specify encryption levels as well. So there's actually 4 different levels of encryption available within the product, and you can specify the different options there. Now, it is also worthwhile mentioning that if you are using gateway connections, you can also specify to use a certificate to utilize SSL and TLS security for the connection if you're connecting over the gateway. Now, it is then also possible to set things such as logging. So to ensure that everything is captured when remote sessions are performed, you can log to the event log, or you can choose to log to a file. You can also, if the client can't connect to its log file, it will reject the connection. So you can configure it to do a number of different options there for security. Now, as well as being able to log to a file or to the event log what's being performed during the remote control session, it's also possible to record replay files at the client. And the same can also be performed at the control machine. So on the client side, though, you can say to enable the recording of replay files so that when a remote session is started to the client device, that will be recorded to a replay file that can be reviewed at a later date. So as you can see, that's just a few of the security options that are available within NetSupport Manager for the client that you can specify to ensure that you can secure access to your devices. It's worthwhile also noting that you can profile access. So within the NetSupport Manager client configuration, you don't have to have one set of settings for everybody. You could have different profiles of different settings for the client. So for example, if a senior technician was to connect in, it may provide them with more features and more access to the NetSupport Manager functionality than when maybe a junior technician is connected in, or a first line technician is connected in. It could limit what features are available to them. So it's possible to provide client profile access to the devices. Now, with NetSupport Manager, we do also include Active Directory template files, or ADMX template files. We include those using the classic type ADM and also using ADMX, which allows you to also secure your configuration for your NetSupport Manager controls and for your NetSupport Manager clients to ensure that you can centrally manage the configuration. To locate those, you will find those installed with the NetSupport Manager control. If you browse to the C drive program files, NetSupport Manager directory, in here you will see an ADM template folder, and within here you'll find the ADMX files to allow you to centrally configure both the client and the control. And you'll find I say client and control template files, and also machine and user-based template files for each of those components to allow you to ensure that you can lock down access to your clients using your required permissions for NetSupport Manager. And you'll find full documentation on the support site for NetSupport Manager as to how you can import and how you can access those policies. You can always also talk to the technical support team here at NetSupport, and we'll be happy to assist with any configurations that you'd like to perform. So that's a great way of allowing you to secure access to your devices and ensure that you have the settings that you require assigned. And that concludes the demonstration of NetSupport Manager and overview of all of the features. So I hope that's been useful. Thank you.